Hello. Hope you can hear me. Hello. Okay, so today I have a quick stream for you, but I think we're going to cover something interesting. So, what is this about? Our live streams is not super structured content, but I try to get some ideas of what I'm going to share with you. And for this, I think we can get started with something that a lot of people aren't familiar with. Why? Because it's not covered in most Ruby tutorials or most Ruby books, and that's fine. So, but it's good to know as well. So what I'm talking about this. So Ruby itself is a program, right? This can you run the program Ruby is a program in itself that we interpret if we read your source code and run it as Ruby code, right? This is what we call the Ruby interpreter. It interprets your Ruby code. So basically that's the programming language this way is implemented, right? The interpreter reads your source code, and as a result you get your program running, right? But the thing is that this Ruby program by itself, besides just running your, well, not just, that's a lot of work to run your source code, it also has a lot of options, as you can see here. So you can find out these options to Ruby-H, and -H usually stands for help in most Linux and also Mac programs, right? So if you're running Linux or Mac OS, you want to know what something does, usually doing -H, we give you a menu like this with all of the options. Another thing you can do if you want to know what a command does, that this also works for other commands like ls, cat, many other commands, mv, all of these basic Linux commands, you can use these. So they're not exclusive to Ruby in any way. Some other programs take dash, so 2 dashes like this, and then the word help. So they want you to spell it out. And sometimes we get different output. If you do 1-H or the full on naming with dash and the word help, spell out the full word help, right? And that will help, that will get you this menu of options. Another option is you can say the word man, and it is man, and man stands for manual. Okay, and you can often do man and the name of something like Ruby or the command ls, and this will give you information about that command. I believe this is also available in Mac OS, but I'm not 100% about that. It's definitely available in all Linux variants and distributions. So it doesn't matter if you're running Ubuntu or Manjaro or whatever you're running for Linux. I don't know what's more popular these days. Debian is also another distribution. I think Solus or something is another that's kind of new. Or Elementary OS is another one. Yeah, so it doesn't matter. All of them are going to have this command, so you can check how commands work. All of them are also going to have, or most of them are going to have this -h, so you can get help information. So that's very helpful because that means you don't have to go to Google and search for things, right? If you can stay in here in your command line, you're going to be more productive. There's also a reason to use pry, the pry command, because from here you also have things you can do directly from the command line, and there is also a help command, right? So there is that. So back to what I wanted to show you, this there is a lot of options, as you can see, and most people barely know any of these options, and they can be very helpful. For example, we can do the following command, and in this command you can run Ruby directly with the Ruby command. Here's what I mean. I can do like something simple like put 1, 2, 3, and this will do exactly what you would expect. I get 1, 2, 3. Notice that it just ran this code. I didn't have to write any files. I didn't even have to open IRB. So normally you will just open IRB, right? Here my prompt, this line is customized. Yours will probably look different, but basically the functionality is the same. And you can type and you can do multiple things in IRB to run code. But if you have like a one-off code that you want to quickly see, you don't even have to open IRB. You can just do Ruby -e, right, like this. It has to be lowercase. So in this option, I believe it has to be lowercase because sometimes there is an uppercase version that is something different. And then we have our code, and that is regular Ruby code that will be interpreted, and you get the output. So that's cool. It can be helpful if you just want to quickly run some code and you don't want IRB, you don't want some file, you just want the output, right? But you can combine this with other options. Like for example, if I do NE, see, NE, what happens? Well, something different happens. Is now I go into a loop. You see that in here the program ended immediately. I got the output, but in here it's waiting. It's waiting for me to type something. So I can write like testing. I can write again testing. What's happening? Well, what's happening is this creating a loop, but I don't have any loop in here. It's actually creating a loop for you. So this is a loop without having to write a loop. Isn't that cool? So basically here's an invisible while loop running around this code. On top of that, it's also reading. It's like the gets. If you're familiar with the gets method, it's basically waiting for me to type something on my keyboard and press enter. And it's reading that. And then it's going to run this code, which results on printing 1, 2, 3. Okay, so that's cool, but it's really cool that we can use a loop before actually writing the code for the loop. Notice that I don't have any file names or anything. It's just a feature that's included with the Ruby program, right? The N creates a loop. So what can we do with this? Is there any practical uses? So for the -e, use -e. Yeah, that's useful because I want to quickly run some Ruby code without anything else. Well, that's how you do it. What about this loop option? Why does that exist? Why is that helpful? Well, let's find out with some examples. And here's where your creativity comes in. But of course, if you can find examples, that helps, right? But it's good to have some creativity too. So how can this be helpful? Well, one option is that we have access to a special variable called $_. Okay, so let's see what happens. If I do testing, now that's interesting. Hold on. There. So now notice that something very interesting happened here. Notice this has color, a different color than this. So the program where you type commands is called a shell, right? So you see these symbols. Just like you can type code into IRB here, when you're typing into your terminal outside of IRB or any other program, you're typing in another program. So you're always in a program, right? What prints these symbols, these arrows, this is a program. And we call this program a shell. There are different kinds of shells. There is bash, there is sh, there is zsh, zsh. Do you like my Z? Z. Yeah, so there is ZSH, which is what I'm using here. There is others. There is one called even fish. There is even one built with Ruby, which I don't remember the name, but that exists. There is different kinds of shells. Basically, the purpose of a shell is a terminal program. It allows you to type things like the ls command or the man command. It's a command interpreter for the operating system. That's what a shell is. Now, why I'm explaining that, besides very interesting thing to know? Well, because here we got different results. It turns out that the shell program, it also has special variable called $_. So what happens here, it's taking the special variable from before, and this is 1 to 3. That's why I got 1 to 3 here. So there is one thing that you must know. This is very important. The other thing, well, it's good to know if you work with servers or if you're using Linux personally for development, then it's pretty important. But what's even more important than that is understanding the difference between these quotes. So you see this, we call this double quotes. Why? Because it's two. It's like two quotes together in one character, right? These two quotes is one character. So you see the block, the yellow block, that represents a single character. I can't separate these two, right? It's a single character. But yeah, double quotes in what this is the single quote. So what's the difference? Well, the difference is that double quotes interprets special characters. So what that means is this special variable is being replaced by 1 to 3. So what we're really doing is put 1 to 3. We're really doing that. So remember that the n is grabbing a loop, is creating a loop for you, a loop before actually writing a loop, right? So that's pretty cool. it's creating a loop around that, about puts 1 to 3, and that's why I get that. I get 1 to 3 here, although there is no 1 to 3 anywhere. In reality there is, because it's been replaced, right? Now, what happened here? Why is this different? Well, this single quote. Single quote means this. It's when you interpret things as they are, right? So literally, you interpret what's inside the quote literally as it is, without changing anything. That's why this works. So that's very important to know, because sometimes you see single quotes or double quotes. What's the difference? Well, you know now. You know, should understand after this example. Double quotes, we say, okay, I will do interpretation of special symbols and special variables and things like that inside the two quotes, which is this. But with single quotes, we say, no, I don't do any special thing. I just take things as they are, right? So that's it, the difference. And that's why this works. If you don't know that, it's really easy to get super confused, right? Because you might read somewhere that is a special variable in Ruby, and you go to try it, and yeah, it doesn't work. Why I'm getting 1 to 3, 1 to 3? Where is this 1 to 3 coming from? Well, it's coming from because it has special value in the shell. It's being replaced before this value gets to Ruby, right? So there is that. So having said that, we can go back to our example, and now we can do something different. We can say that everything we enter, everything I type, I want it to be upcased like this. So I can write testing and it becomes upcased. I can write bacon, or I can write chocolate, right? And I automatically, whatever I type is going to be upcased. And we are in this loop. If you want to exit the loop cleanly, how do you do that? Where you can press, at least in Linux, I know this changed a bit on Mac OS. In Linux, I press Control D. Okay, so that's Control D. So I keep pressing Control. I hold Control, the Control key, and then I press D, and that will end the program. Right? It will end this loop. So there is that. You can do, of course, more with this. Here's where you use some. You can use some imagination with this. It also turns out that this variable, it's what I type, is the value of what I type. So if I type cell, this is the value of what I type. But this also can take into another value, which is what I pass into the program. Let me see what I mean. I can do ls something, for example, and then I can list some files. So I've been working on I built a periodic table program because I have been learning about chemistry. I thought it would be really cool to build a periodic table program. So I did that, and now I'm going to list the files that have the name table in the name itself. Okay. And what's gonna happen is I get the list, Ruby gets the list, right? And the loop reads the list and it runs this code for each element of this list. Now notice this, notice what's happening here, very interesting if you're paying attention. What's happening here is two different programs are working together. Okay, I think this is very interesting. In fact, fascinating. If you think of what's happening here, two different programs that know nothing about each other. So LS knows nothing about Ruby. Ruby knows nothing about LS, but they're able to work together. How? Well, through this character, this pipe character. So what's happening here is I'm taking the output of ls, which means list, of all of the files that contain the word table. I'm taking that list, I'm sending it, that's what the pipe character means, I'm sending this list produced by a completely different program into Ruby. And this is a Ruby program, which is this. And all of this program is doing is creating a loop that we read this list and then I can do anything I want with that list. Like for example, I can print the value of these file names in uppercase. So that's what's happening here. And in fact, I could pass this list into something else. I could save this list into a file if I wanted. How? With this symbol, right? With this, I can write a file name, and then I can do like list.txt, right? That would create a list with this list, this data. So I think that's really cool. What you can also do is you can take advantage of Ruby and do something more interesting that print uppercase. Is you can use the file class in Ruby, right? How about that? For some creativity, we have the file class. File class has a bunch of class methods associated with this class, and with this we can ask information about these files, right? What kind of information could we ask for? How about the size of these files? Okay, that's interesting. How about that? Huh. I wonder that. I think that worked before. Base name. Yeah, that works. I don't know why it wouldn't work with signs, but we can do other things, like we can find out, for example, what's the last time this file was changed. So we can find that with m time. And again, this also worked before. Oh, I know why, and you will see why. Let's say I remove puts, I use p. So this is tricky, you need to know these things. Let me show you what's going on in here. Ta-da! Our friend, the new line character. That's what's happening. That's exactly what's happening. Okay? You don't see it here because it's kind of an invisible character, but thanks to p, we can see it. And by the way, if you don't know the difference between p and puts, we use one example, but you can read about this on my website. It's rubyguides.com. I have an article in here where I go about the differences. you can also Google for that. If you Google for P versus puts in Ruby, I think my article comes one of the first ones. If you can find it, you can use Google to find it. Or you can type in Google something like site rubyguides.com and then your search term, and you can do like P versus puts. That's one way you can filter through a specific site in Google. So you would put this inside Google search box, and this will filter to a specific site. But because my site is pretty popular, apparently, just looking for Ruby P versus puts, you will probably find the article. Okay, so that's if you want to know a P versus puts. And by the way, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to click the like button for me so more people can find this video, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more videos like this. Okay, you might also want to subscribe to my newsletter on rubyguides.com. But we're not done here, because we just discover a problem, right? We found out about this little problem. How can we remove it? Well, if you know your Ruby well, you will know that there is your chomp. Chomp, what's chomp? We're chomping off, we're cutting off this new long character. But there is more. And this more is we can do this automatically. How? Using another option, the L option. And now it works. Ta-da! So this is equivalent to basically doing this chomp. Of course, this only works when we are combining with the E and N. So all of these work in combination, right? So how do we take this back to what we were trying to do before? Well, we can do add or L there. Ta-da! Now we get a list of times. So this is the time the file was last changed. And we could save, of course, we could save this into a file. And this will, for example, allow you to see if the file had changed or not based on these timestamps, right? So you could say files change like that, and you could have a record of the last time the files were changed. If you change again, you can compare that with this and find out if the files actually change or not. For example, just one practical example you could use with this. And the real cool thing here is that you can work with programs from outside Ruby, like this, right? And you are piping the output from ls. And by the way, it doesn't have to be ls. It could be any other program, even programs that you install, even Java programs or any other kind of program that prints things into a list like ls. Then you can pipe that into Ruby, and then from Ruby you can process that information, right? So I'm going to now read the chat very quickly. We have, hi Jesus, thanks for your videos. I miss the TCP IP masterclass. Aren't you planning to upload it? Yes, maybe. Asif Ali, thank you, Jesus. Yeah, thank you for watching and thanks for your support. And we have Daniel Tinivela, Red Jesus. Well, thank you for watching, Daniel. Sonny Mail, write the subtitles. No, I'm not going to write subtitles. Well, thanks for the suggestion. If you understand, well, you can watch someone else. I don't have a problem with that. But I'm not going to write subtitles before a live stream, especially when the live stream I don't script it or plan everything before. Okay, so I think that's really cool. As you can see, you can build very quickly useful programs just with this, right? So that's another way that you can use Ruby. Any questions about this? Oh, we have, I hope I pronounce, sorry if I don't say your name correctly, but we have Samik Shah Kalab. He says, thank you, Jesus. I love your vlogs. Well, thank you for your comment. I appreciate it. And thank you for watching. And feel free to, if you like, since you love the vlog, feel free to share it with your friends or anyone that might benefit from it. Okay. So there is that. If there are no questions, I'm done for today. Thank you very much. Remember to keep practicing your Ruby skills and keep learning so you can become a really good world-class Ruby developer. But that takes a lot of work, right? And it's not, you can't do that just with tutorials. You have to read all kinds of books, manuals, guides, and watch videos and practice a lot. And different modes of practice, right? A lot of people get stuck into one mode of practice. There are different modes of practice. You can practice with open source projects. You can practice creating your own gem. You can practice creating your own Sinatra application, your Rails application, and you can practice with using different gems. You can practice with APIs, using like a NASA API. If you like space things, NASA has a lot of free APIs you can use and practice with, right? So that's something that a lot of employers are going to appreciate if you know how to use different kinds of APIs, right? If you can do research and solve errors, different kinds of programming errors and messages, understand the message, things like that. Okay, so there is that. If you like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel, give me a like, and watch more videos on the channel. There are over 100 videos you can find, and visit my website rubyguides.com. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.